extra special guest surprise.
Tennis shoes.
So there's some things that you really have to consider when you're shooting like this. And you want me to blow your minds even further? Hey, welcome back to another episode of VFX Artist Reacts. Today, we are going to watch some really cool clips and we got an extra special guest surprise.
Don't click that X button.
This is from Solo, a Star Wars story, and there's something really interesting about this sequence. One is like, it's a pretty sweet train heist sequence and all that, but it ends in a very climactic way. Here, let's just watch it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Oh, that's neat.
What's actually cool about this shot is that everything is fake except for the explosion.
Wait, this is real?
It was actually inspired by our good friend Gavin from the Slow-Mo guys. So what they did was they actually took a phantom camera, they 3D printed the mountain and put it in a giant fish tank, and they shot it something like 45 different times and from different angles. So what you're seeing are real air bubbles within water wrapping around the edges of the mountain. So it's like a perfect simulation of a shot, because it is flawless simulation, it's reality.
I love that they used real elements.
That is salty waterfall level cool. Like, that is awesome.
Right? Speaking of using real elements, there's a robot in this movie that was basically a real robot filmed on set. It's the same thing they did on Game of Thrones. They would have like this crazy looking skeleton dude with like a green screen leg, and they would just remove the leg. Here's the thing about all of this though. They go through all the trouble erasing out all of the internals, and they're like, we're gonna keep all of the actual costume bits in, and then we remove the green screen, then we fill in all the internal bits, and then we replace the entire costume.
Sometimes full CG is actually easier than combining real and CG together. And if you can just render it all in CG and have it work together, the lighting and the shadows, it might just be faster.
Plus it probably ends up looking better with the actual like matte paintings of the environment and all that stuff. You can see the biggest changes are the actual reflections of the sky on the machine itself. She could have just been wearing a mocap suit rather than the actual robotic suit, but it does put her, one, in a better mindset for acting like a robot, and two, the best lighting reference you can possibly have.
So this is just a very high budget version of Bird Up, the worst show on television.
You got some poppy seed in your mouth. Bird Up.
This is an example of a lot of great reference on set, but ultimately it gets replaced with a CG model. And so another robot that also looked great, but was done very practically, is a robot from I Am Mother. And I think we should take a look at that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Did you know there were people out there?
I'm as surprised as you.
There's a droid here.
I still really want to see that movie. It looked really cool.
Dude, you knew we were gonna talk about this. How have you not seen it yet? It's
You're
on
supposed
Netflix.
to do your research. Get him out of here.
I haven't seen
Solo.
of this shot.
All right, I'm gonna fire up my new teleportation spell, and we're gonna get somebody here who has seen I Am Mother. Hi.
Subscribe.
Whoa.
Sorry to do this to you so abruptly.
I recognize all of this. Am I in a VFX Artist React episode right now?
You are, and for those of you who don't know, this is Grant Spatore, the director of I Am Mother.
So just to be clear though, Clint hasn't seen it. So have you seen it though?
Way too many times.
Okay.
Yeah, but I am very happy to comment on anything that you need me to talk about.
So the robot in I Am Mother, you guys put together a suit that is by far one of the best practical robot suits I've ever seen. But you also have some CG robot shots.
Yeah, it's almost the secret of the film because we really wanted to celebrate practical effects when we were making this. But when you're making a low budget film, there were a bunch of things that the script called for that we couldn't let the suit do.
Wait, how many suits did you have?
One.
You only had one suit?
One suit.
Well, what happens if you broke the suit?
End of movie. End of career.
Cancelled.
Let's take a look at some shots from the film and see if you can tell what's CG and what's real. Mother, chilling. The babies in this film get born in 24 hours. Just an easy bake oven for babies.
So that real baby was interacting with that robot there. So maybe the hands are practical and then like the whole chest is computer generated?
CG robot with baby? You can't get babies to act.
It's true. I can vouch for that.
Oh, and now it's no longer a baby, it's a little girl.
Oh yeah, it's just changing.
Up.
That looks real to me because of how it's moving, like the slight jiggles and stuff. It's hard to get that right.
The little girl's obviously CG as well. Good job with the face.
Throughout that whole sequence of shots, it's all real.
There was one shot that made me think like, okay, that was pretty dang real. It was the close-up on the wrist. You get the really nice detail in the highlights and scratches and stuff.
See, what's interesting is that shot is completely real, But another shot that's equally tight and close and is actually CG.
Really?
Yeah. Credit to the VFX guys at Finn. They built the CG mother after we'd made the real mother. So it's all about photo scans and like LiDAR scanning mother.
Okay, why would you choose to have the baby holding on to a CG hand rather than a practical hand?
In this instance, we got a better performance from the baby when the baby was interacting with her real mother.
Oh, you know what? That makes sense.
There, she is looking at a robot. That's completely real.
Oh, wow.
So like
Wait,
it was
okay.
changeable. Initially, we had the baby interacting with the robot with the head off. So like she understood that like the really sweet man that was playing Mother, Luke Hawker, was inside this bit of costume. And eventually we put the head on. But the shot where the baby gets put on the floor and you see Mother's feet, that's actually CG.
I actually thought that was real because the baby was interacting.
Yeah, no, that's CG.
So that shot's flawless.
Those things were going to sit side by side in this sequence and throughout the whole film. The bar was set really high. It was basically realism, like it's got to look real. And the VFX guys got there.
So, okay, even sitting down at the table there, I actually thought that was a real shot, but that's a computer-generated shot now.
Yeah, so well, the original plan on shots like this were that like let's have the real suit and then just replace the hands. Like let's have the hands go fast, right?
Yeah.
But it actually proved to be more difficult to get those arms to feel like they were locked to the body than it was to just completely replace Mother. And that was something that we felt increasingly confident doing. Tennis shoes. That's a story, that scene.
Wait, why is he in his underwear?
This was like the last day of second unit photography, and so there was nothing for Luke to wear. And so he was just going to do it in the clothes that he was wearing, but the VFX guys were like, it's all black. Like in a dark environment, we can't see you. And then Luke, being the exhibitionist that he is like, what about skin? Like, would you be able to track and follow the
It
skin?
would also give great lighting reference as well.
On any other visual effects artist react episode, I would ask you, how did you make the CG suits look so real? But this time, I'm going to flip it. How did you make the real suit look so CG?
It's ultimately about hiding the fact that there's a person in there, right? You want the audience to suspend disbelief. And there's a bunch of tricks that we're doing to be able to do that. Mother's head is actually sitting a couple of inches above Luke's head. And that allows you to create these sort of cavities like in around her neckline that make it look like there's nowhere to hide a person. That took like 6 months to get worked out like what exactly Mother looked like. I knew I always wanted her to look like a real robot.
The robot kind of reminds me of like the eventual evolution of the Boston Dynamics
Totally.
robot.
I want to see Clint in a mocap CG Mother suit fighting Mother. Like that'd be great.
As a director on this project, how much of a difference do you think it would make having a practical versus a CG suit? What exactly are you seeing in the performance that changes?
Part of it is like everybody actually being on the same page and sharing the same reality. And that's like within the confines of the scenes.
Can you describe to us what we're seeing with this weird like
I want
armored
to
suit?
know all about this blue screen suit that you've developed.
Yeah, it kind of looks like, wow, this is a really high-end film where they've got a fancy blue version of Mother that they're using for CG. But this is actually a black foam suit that Weta built before they built the real suit as a test case.
But you still have the suit sitting around.
Exactly. And we just got a couple of cans of blue spray paint and we just spray painted it blue. Like that's it. It's so important because when you've got that interaction from an actor like with what's ultimately going to become a CG thing, you need the terrain to sort of map.
At one point, I know you guys were shooting at a beach, but it's all this like foggy tree sort of stuff. And I couldn't really see too much of the original beach in these shots.
All of the outside world is filmed on the same beach. Like, so when Clara reaches the beach, that's the same place where the bunker door is, right? But we used CG to kind of create the variety in the landscapes to make it feel like you've covered a greater terrain.
I think this movie is really showcasing a pretty big turning point in visual effects where you guys had a budget, but it's not a huge budget.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, you know, Netflix bought the film at Sundance. It was made completely independently. It was made in Australia, and we never had enough money. But we were working with VFX companies that were really skilled, really passionate, and really wanting to prove themselves.
Well, Grant, it was amazing having you here.
It was amazing being here.
And if people want to kind of get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Instagram, @GrantSpitori.
Great. And do you want me to teleport you back to Australia?
That would be super convenient. It is a long flight.
All right, here we go. All right, Clint, get back over here. Is your foot okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, dude.
I got a great Instagram shot of that. Speaking of Instagram, you can follow us at Corridor Digital. Go check it out. Should we do our Patreon one?
Oh yeah, dude, Patreon.
All right. So if you support us on Patreon, you can vote on what one of the videos will be that we react to.
This winner came out of left field.
Space Jam.
Let's see if I remember how to do this.
Man, Michael Jackson. Michael Jordan.
Michael Jackson.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Yo, easy on the trousers, Steph. Easy, man.
Pardon me.
This is at the beginning of motion tracking, like camera tracking. Like the movies before that were still doing it manually, and they ended up kind of developing their own software to do all of the camera tracking. They filmed all of Michael Jackson.
Jordan.
Yeah. They shot any of their people on a green screen stage with red tracking markers, and then they recreated the entire court digitally.
You guys ready?
I'm set to take it to the rack, Jack. Those monsters will wish they'd never been born.
This was the first time I remember seeing Looney Tunes with like proper shading as opposed to just the
Yeah.
classic 2D shading. The hand-drawn 2D drawings of each of the Looney Tunes characters is just one pass, flat lighting, right? Then they do a whole pass of like any shading. And they would be able to adjust that and blur it out where necessary if they needed to adjust the amount of directional lighting on them. Nice. It was pretty sweet. How do you think a cartoon character passes a basketball to a real-life person like Michael Jackson? Dang it.
Michael Jordan is maybe using a pretend basketball?
I think it's one of the first photo scans.
Oh, really?
They took hundreds of photos of this basketball from every possible angle and recreated it in 3D. Anytime the cartoon characters are dribbling around, they're dribbling a 3D rendered ball. And they made it look as close to the real ball that Michael Jackson was using on set. I did it again! I did it again!
That wasn't on purpose. If you guys have a movie or a show with some sweet visual effects, please leave a comment down below. We read them all. We actually have a really fun time going through all the comments, so please keep it up.
Let's take it from 1998 to the year 2019 here.
Whoa! Blast
Oh, let's talk about Gemini Man.
Gemini Man!
Gemini Man.
All right, so we just had a chance to see Gemini Man in theaters, all of us, in 3D at 120 frames per second. But let's just say that I actually really enjoyed the action in this movie. And watching
action
the high
is the
frame
best
rate
part.
was pretty cool.
That was what they were trying to do with The Hobbit back in the day. I wasn't the biggest fan of that kind of high frame rate on The Hobbit.
So they need to go
but
even
this was
higher.
different.
So there's some things that you really have to consider when you're shooting like this. I think Ang Lee dug down into it. When you're watching something that's 4K at 120 frames per second in 3D, you can tell when the actors are wearing makeup.
Did any of the actors wear makeup in this movie?
I mean, there's subtle makeup here and there. Traditional makeup is not present in this movie. But here's the thing, so fight scenes, right? When you can see every little bit of motion, you can tell when a stuntman's gonna throw their face before the hand connects at 120 frames per second.
Oh, right.
You don't see that at 24. So these fight scenes, they need to actually go in and reanimate them so when somebody throws a punch, the face doesn't move until the hand is pushing the face. But you know what? We're digressing, because what the heck? Who's that? It's young Will Smith. Let's talk a little bit about some of the technology they had to do in Gemini Man to get him to look real. You know I like talking about how pores gotta stretch.
Oh yeah.
My pores stretch. Pores stretch. In Gemini Man, they didn't just take a texture with pores and like figure out how to stretch. They took the model and they had a procedural generation of pores on the face. If you look at the back of your hand, right, and you go like this, you'll see very fine wrinkles, and that's the platelets of your skin stacking up on top of each other. And so the procedural pores and the procedural platelets let them have the wrinkles follow the appropriate cracks and crevices to get exactly perfect micro wrinkles for the skin.
Didn't Weta Digital do all the effects
Yes.
for this? What an
Weta-
effects company.
Yeah, anyways, shush. So wrinkles is important to get right, but skin tone is important to get right too. So once again, in CG graphics, you might just throw a texture on there, right? Not in this movie. They had melanin simulation. If you go like this, the blood gets pushed out of the parts of your skin that get squished or pushed back into it. Stop that, please. This is the kind of stuff you have to think about when you do the human face. It is not easy. And you want me to blow your minds even further? The shots with Gemini Man. They were motion capturing his entire body, and they rendered the entire body as a digital replacement.
The only problem I had with this movie was the motion of a lot of different things.
Same, the dirt bike.
If you were to pause on any of this, it looks flawless. But the motion is what doesn't work for me. Like that tail whip on the bike was like really quick.
So when things break the rules of gravity, like in this case, the dirt bike, it's very subtle, but we can all tell that it doesn't feel right.
It just goes to show that I think motion is pretty much the hardest thing to get right.
He has to die. It's your darkness. You had to walk through this on your own.
Dear animators, stop moving the upper lip, please. Because there is no muscle going from your nose down to your lip to pull it straight up.
That's Gary's mod. That's not reality.
This one, his bottom lip is pushing his top lip up. It looks correct.
That looks, yeah.
There's another scene that he's just sitting there, he's listening, and he's emoting, and his upper lip just goes, and it like slides up and down as he's kind of like sneering. And it's kind of a byproduct of morph targets and motion tracking, but it's not just Gemini Man. Anytime there's a CG face, if it looks fake, take a look at the upper lip and watch it slide up on its own because there's no muscle there, and subconsciously you know it. And anytime a CG face does it, you immediately can tell it's fake.
Isn't that what we saw the deep fake do better with Princess Leia?
It is what we saw the deepfake do better with Princess
So
Leia.
couldn't you just do a deep fake on Will Smith and maybe fix the lip?
You know, I'm glad you asked, Ren. We wanted to do a deepfake of Will Smith and see how it compares to Gemini Man. It took us a while, but we actually found a really, really, really good Will Smith impersonator.
Super nice guy.
Take a look at this. I think it's one of the best Will Smith deepfakes you've ever seen.
You may have seen our Tom Cruise deepfakes, our Keanu Reeves deepfakes, and we have been perfecting the technology, and we think we have the perfect Will Smith.
It took a lot of work, but we're finally here.
Now you have to make sure that the person underneath the deepfake has the same stature, the same mannerisms, right?
It's all about the performance and the personality. So, Will, what's your favorite hot sauce?
Red bird.
So realistic, it's so convincing. It's all in the performance.
Check out how high resolution it is, and look like the expressions are perfectly captured. Can you show us like a big expression, maybe? That's great. So I just want to point out the key to this technology is having the perfect person underneath to capture that performance. So I just want to say big thanks here to our Will Smith impersonator for helping us out with the perfect deepfake. It was great.
That was good.
Thank you so much.
I feel deep. I faked myself out, dude. I faked myself out that time.
Gotcha. Thanks, Will Smith. Appreciate you being in our video.
Super nice guy.
Anyways,
I didn't meet him.
if you do like action and you want to see action in a way you haven't seen it before, try to catch the high frame rate screening of it.
I do highly recommend it, absolutely. Yeah. As a movie, I have critiques, but as an experience, you gotta go see it.
And you know, I would really, really, really like it if you were to subscribe, if you're not subscribed already.
Yeah, what is this called?
So this is called a hand pan. It's basically a distant relative of a steel drum.
For those of you who don't know, we actually have a Patreon account which helps support this show, and you can even vote on whatever movies you want in every episode.
That's where Space Jam came from today.
But we also have some very special patrons that we want to thank specifically today, starting with Bailey Wilson,
Dave Crooks,
Harris Redzpagic,
Oscar Bunting,
Philip Oxford,
Alan Almanza,
Warmaster236,
Not a Canadian Spy,
Mitch Plensky,
Skinky Snack,
Glitch Cube,
James Bailey,
Brian Antozik, and many more. Big list here, kind of like at the end of a big movie.
Are they scrolling now?
Yeah, they're scrolling. Dude,
that's a lot.
Wait for that post-credits scene. Thanks, Marvel. Please support us on Patreon. You help make this show possible, and thank you.